So half a day, guys. Welcome to UOG's EMC Squared second episode of our Alumni Series. Before we get started, please make sure to sign in. Um, while we're waiting for signing in, our presenter for today is Jose Santiago. Without going into details, Jose designs, manages, and implements network infrastructure and systems for the University of Guam. As we can see here on the flyer, yes. So with that in mind, please welcome Jose Santiago for our very own, the University of Guam.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, JC, for the introduction. And thank you, EMC Squared, for having me on this alumni series. It's pretty neat to be back here in the club participating. I don't know if you guys remember Randy from the last series. We were partners in a lot of things, UOG, school, the club, and work. And I'll touch base on that. So before I get started, I'm gonna just talk about um, my experience of my journey of becoming a network engineer, where I started pretty much, or somewhere where I started, and how I got to where I am today. If you guys have any questions, just put them in the chat. We can make this an interactive talk. So I just stole EMT Squared's Instagram photo for my cover photo, or for cover title. Has all the information. It's pretty good. So why not reuse it? Okay, cool. So for those that don't know me personally, let's see. I'm actually from Saipan, not from Guam at all. Moved here in 2011. This here's an aerial shot of the island. Uh, those buildings down there that you see. Let's see if I can turn on my laser pointer. This strip right here is pretty much like our Tumon. It's called Garapan, where all the shopping districts and stuff are. So yeah, born there and raised there. What did I do there? So 2011, I graduated from the Northern Marianas College with a liberal arts degree. So I started my college career actually back home in Saipan before I moved here to Guam. I guess you kind of treat it like our version of GCC, where we just get our general electives. At this point in time, I had no idea what I wanted to pursue in college. I didn't have a much interest in tech or IT at all. I mean, I like playing computer games, but that's as close as I got. So after graduating 2011 from NMC, I moved here to Guam to attend UOG. And for the first couple weeks before my wife came to Guam, I slept on a tatami mat, like a real college kid moving away from home, eating ramen noodles every day until I got my life settled and, got the groove of things and how Guam works. Didn't have a car, so had to figure things out. But all in all, that was pretty good. And when I came to UOG, I had to decide my major. I had no idea what I wanted. Honestly, I was either going to be a computer science major, or I was also debating accounting. Because my mom said that's where the money's at. I was like, man, but I'm not that good at math though. So, but anyways, lo and behold, I chose computer science. And for the next 3 years, this warehouse, I'm sure you guys are all familiar with it, would be my home. And then that's when I got introduced to actual computer science programming. I took my CS21 class, programming with Dr. Swanson. And this is an actual screenshot from our QBasic homework. I don't know if any of you guys took QBasic with Dr. Swanson, but this is one of the homeworks where you had to do some numbers thing. I don't really remember anymore, but I was able to find some old homework, so pull that screenshot out. So my first year here at the university was kind of rough. I couldn't find a job at all. I tried applying at like a whole bunch of fast food places. Even with a liberal arts degree, I could not get a job no matter what. And I don't know why. So I kind of just like banked on my savings and scholarships and stuff like that to propel me for the whole year. So, but in 2012, I landed the work study job, the further work study, and at the computer lab. So this is what the computer lab used to look like in 2012. All Windows 7 computers. And that's me in 2012 as a work study, still wearing an NMC jacket like I can't leave home or something. Yeah. So pretty much that's how I got introduced to troubleshooting computers, my first time customer experience, helping people with computer problems, uh, changing paper in the printer whenever people need to print, stuff like that. Registering people's Wi-Fi. I don't know if anyone remembered that, where you had to actually take your phone to the computer lab, and then we had to register your MAC address into the system so you could use the Wi-Fi. And you had to do that every year because we would clear it, or if you got a new device. But yeah, that was my first job, first real introduction to working in IT. And then that's when I met Randy and Mary Grace. Uh, and then they were starting the math and computer science club. And they're like, hey, you want to join? I'm like, okay, I don't really know anyone here, but sure, why not? And then I joined the Max Club. And then one of the first day meetings was to come up with a logo. So before we had the EMC squared logo, these were one of the original designs. If any of you guys go back to the EMC squared Facebook page and you guys scroll all the way down to the earlier media files, you'll find these archives where these were the first iterations of what the logo could be. Eventually, we settled on this bottom right one, and that became the logo for quite some time before EMC squared is today. Yeah, we had like the S thing for the, what do you guys call this in math? I forget. But yeah. So yeah, got my roots seated into computer science even more, and then came election time, and suddenly I was elected VP. And I don't know how. uh, I guess it was just a lack of members at the time. There, like we were having like 10 members a meeting or something or less at the time. And then eventually we started growing, having bake sales. I love doing the bake sales back then because I me and my wife would make these cupcakes with Oreos inside. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's like a little picture down here where we put an Oreo under the cupcake. That was a fun experiment. And then Mel would make these onigiri rice crispy treats. And then we had our first game night in November 7 of 2013. Uh, so the last time Randy was on, I shared the actually second game night that we had. This is the first one. This is the first flyer. Yeah. After 2013, so as a work study, working at computers, the computer lab, a position opened up, and I got my first full-time job in IT. I hadn't graduated yet, so I was still going to school, but I had a full-time job, so I went to school full-time and work full-time. It was great. I didn't have to drive anywhere. It was just they let me go to work in between classes, and that's when I started, doing more things that are, I guess, hands-on at the university, installing these access points, wireless access points. So I don't know if any of you guys remember these access points around campus. This is pretty much what gives you Wi-Fi. They had these three antennas. The max speed they would give was like 20 megs. But at the time, that's pretty much all we needed for what we were doing. YouTube wasn't fully flushed out. People were just mainly on Facebook or browsing email or looking up stuff online. The campus network bandwidth at the time was only 100 megs. So you could imagine 100 megabits per second shared for the entire campus, staff and students. I mean, some people can get 120 megs from Docomo at their house now, or even more, if I think. But imagine that 100 megs for the entire campus. That's like 4,000 students and 1,000 staff. Imagine everyone like downloading, like watching a YouTube video all at once. It was pretty insane. And that's, I guess, pretty much where I really, really enjoyed working in IT because I started exploring different aspects of it. There's programming, there's actual infrastructure work. I really enjoyed the infrastructure work because I had a lot of background from my dad, working in construction and maintenance and stuff like that. So that was cool. So I started developing those skills. And then sometime during college, my laptop decided to break. I didn't have I didn't have enough savings from working that IT job to buy a new computer at the time, so I had to fix it. I was like, hey, what if and I couldn't find any video online on how to fix my specific laptop. So I made one. And this is called baking your graphics card, where you pretty much disassemble your laptop or your graphics card and put it into like a oven. But in my case, I didn't want to do that because that sounded crazy. So I fixed my graphics card by heating it up with a blow dryer, and I uploaded it up to YouTube. And today, it has 67,000 views, which is insane to me. I don't know how people did that. And I eventually found out that somebody had taken my video and put it on their blog, and all the traffic that went to their blog gave me hit counters on YouTube. So that's a pretty cool thing. Um, Diving into, IT stuff. And then after a while, I got tired of repairing my laptop. Every time it would overheat, the graphics card would desolder itself and the chips would actually start coming off the board. So I saved enough money and I was able to build my first PC. First time building my own PC in 2013. Uh, no one really did guide me except for my coworkers' advice, but like, hey, how do I put this together? You know. So to this day, this is still the same computer I'm running. By choosing the right parts and taking good maintenance of your computer, it can last a long time and still function pretty well. Everything here is exactly the same. Nothing has changed. The only thing I've added was more hard drive space for more storage. That's still the same graphics card I'm running, same everything. So that's pretty much 7, 8 years now or so. And then, so as I was ending my college career, we had to take this class, CS 492. That was the internship course with Dr. Zhao. And I was like, okay, can I just work extra hours at the computer center unpaid for my internship? And so they let me. So after my regular working hours, I would stay back and do special projects. There was a lot of other things they would have me do as part of my internship requirements. But one of the things that the computer center does is when you have an internship with them is they assign you a special project. And I don't know if anyone ever got to try these scantrons for, like, say, the driver's test or the was that professor evaluation thing. You get these cards, these scantron cards, and then you would fill in the bubbles. It would go through this super old machine here, and it would read your results into like a DOS PC. It was like off full command line, and it would crash so much, so many times. And then they would save their data onto a floppy disk, and then upload it to another computer that could read floppy disk, and then somehow add it into the system to tally results or gather information. So that kept breaking on a regular basis. So they tasked me with finding a replacement, and so that's when I went researching with Xerox and this company called Remart, and we developed this custom form where we could print it ourselves and customize it however we want and scan it with any Xerox machine and get the results. So that was one of my biggest projects that I did at the time as an IT tech and with my internship that impacted the university. And then in 2014, I graduated. Again, here's some of the members. As we were graduating, leaving the club behind, Victor here became president and Mel here became the vice president. Yeah, as our sash back then. So interestingly enough, what I had learned at this time was you didn't need a bachelor's degree to get into IT. You just needed good work ethic and some technical know-how to kind of get your way around. And then after graduating, we went our first academic travel to Japan. I fell in love with Japan so much and the technology and the culture and everything that after this travel to Japan in 2014, I kept going every year, once a year at least. There was even one year where I went twice, just to continue learning more and experiencing more about Japan's technology and the culture. After I came back from Japan in that 2014, I was able to get a promotion or applied for a higher position from an IT tech. It's called a junior computer operator. And pretty much the junior computer operator's main job is to manage and maintain these servers here, these mainframes. And we process reports for the university here in these terminals. The operating system at this time for this system is a HP Unix. This is an actual screenshot for what it is. Um, on top of that, we get like special projects, infrastructure projects for like let's say networking stuff or managing UPS, and pretty much training like IT techs and work studies and kind of managing the workflow of the university in IT. That was the job of the computer operator. But also, as I mentioned, we also had special projects. So one of the skills we had to learn was networking, and at the time there was this new thing called Internet 2, and I'll touch back that on a later slide. But there's this new thing called Internet 2 coming out, and they were needing more people to help manage the network. At the time, there was only one guy, and he was about to retire. So they sent me on a trip to Philippines to get some training. I spent a week there, understanding how routers and switches and the network works, how to configure things like BGP, ISIS. Um, we went to this company called Transnet. It was a bizarre experience. It was really crazy. It was the first time I've ever done anything like that. It's like a boot camp off island. Um, and then right after that, in 2015, I think this was in let's say February maybe. In July, I had to go to American Samoa to get a crash course on Linux. So networking has a lot of integrations with systems you use. But if I were to choose the two main things, it'd be, of course, the networking equipment like router switches, access points, and then servers or systems that would help manage or monitor your network. And so I had to get a crash course on Linux. And for that, we went to American Samoa. It was crazy at the time. That's when the whole Ebola virus was happening. And it's like super scary. But well, it was a really great experience. Here's some photos from when we were there. Yeah, so you can see us this screenshot from the PACNOG. From PACNOG, this is called the Pacific Network Operators Group. So basically what PACNOG does is they circulate around the whole Pacific region, holding workshops at different areas, trying to teach people different things about networking or systems management, stuff like that. We held one here in Guam in 2015, I believe. After this PACNOG here in Samoa, I think the next one was held in Guam. Yeah. And then after I came back, a position opened up at the university for a program analyst. And I was like, okay, I want to move up from a computer operator to something higher. I applied for the junior programmer analyst position and I failed miserably. I didn't even get past the HRO screening, the human resource screening for minimum qualifications. I remember what I said when I said you don't need a degree to get past to get into IT. That's when I learned I was wrong. So to get into the mid technical fields, you don't really need one. But if you want to progress any higher, get your foot in the door, a degree is really helpful and sometimes a requirement. It doesn't necessarily help train you to do the job you need to do. I mean, you'll learn some stuff in the classes that will help you, but it's more so as a foot in the door. And then after that, it's all about experience and training and just everyday practice for the skill sets. I had never trained to be a programmer, and I just wanted to try it out. The only programming I did was a little bit as the junior computer operator processing reports. And so I failed that miserably. And to supplement that failure, I went and got a part-time job. So there was an opening at Ladera Tower for a IT tech or IT support, pretty much full all around IT support. So right now, until this day, I still maintain that position at Ladera as the IT there. Whenever people have problems with their POS systems or their I guess management software, or even tenants who have problems with Wi-Fi in their condos, they'd call me and I'd go there and fix it. Yeah, so because of my lack of experience, I went and looked for more to add to my resume bucket. Um, Moving on, as I mentioned, the network was evolving. There was this new thing called Internet 2. So the internet, as you know it, is pretty much just a bunch of websites and applications that people can go to on a regular basis for whatever they want. Facebook, Google, uh, whatever. Internet 2 is a research and education network, meaning it's dedicated and no other traffic goes on this line. So if we think of the analogy of two roads, one road is where everyone is allowed to pass, and then they built a separate road that's wider and you can go as fast as you want, and there's only like a few people on it. And so that's what pretty much Internet 2 is. And that's because we had researchers who had to send data, like terabytes of data over the network. And if you remember, I was saying the network at the time at the university was only 100 megs, up and down, download and upload. And they would to send like a terabyte of data to a colleague in, say, the States to analyze, it would take more than a month just to upload that data. And it was actually faster for them to take the data, put it into an external hard drive, bubble wrap it, and send it via US like airmail. Can you believe that airmail was faster than downloading a video? And so that's what Internet 2 strives for, to create pathways so that data transmission is a lot more quicker between research institutions. At the time, I had no idea anything about networking, uh, besides that little brief thing I had in the Philippines. But I was kind of just thrown into that. I'm not really sure what was going on, but at least I was exposed to it. And then, so what we had was a campus network design workshop, sponsored by the NSRC, Network Startup Research Center from Oregon. They flew some of their team here. We also had some people from University of Hawaii, a representative from Internet 2 fly down here, and we invited people from the Pacific, Marianas region, Micronesia, Palau FSM, CNMI was also here. GCC, GDOE were a lot of the education research networks in the Pacific region, neighboring Guam, were invited to come over to participate in this workshop. That's where I met one of my mentors, longtime mentors, Philip Smith. He's been the one that's been helping me, training me, or guiding me every time I had questions about networking. And our job was to prepare the network at University of Guam for Internet 2. Because at the time, this was the state of the network. Had you ever taken a visit to the computer center, data center? This is what the lab looked like in 2016. Wires everywhere, stacks and stacks of routers, even small home-based type of routers, like 8-port little switches. It's just a massive mess, and cables going everywhere. Labels were pretty much just sticky notes that were holding on with a staple. You get old terminal screens like this. We had T1 lines, ISBNs that were only like 10 meg circuits. And this right here on the right side, if anyone remember eTriton, the eTriton email where you had like, I don't know, 10 megs of storage where you'd only use it pretty much just to reset your web advisor password. That's this guy right here. Yeah, it's pretty intense. And so from that workshop that we had with NSRC, they came in, showed us what we needed to do. And for the next 3 to 4 years, that was what we did. Just trace things, migrate things to different systems, remove networks and increase bandwidth. So at the time, we were at 100 megs. We moved our network to 750. And at that time, and that was pretty much the start of when I became a network engineer with Randy. Again, me and Randy were, I guess, partners in IT from all the way in college until now. So we're pretty good partners. We got selected for a fellowship to attend the Internet 2 Tech Exchange in Miami. This is a full expenses paid, everything, flight, board and lodge. Even the conference was paid for by Internet 2. As a kind of, I want to say bribe, but like incentive, as an incentive for the University of Guam to improve its network. They were investing in us. to help improve what I showed you that state of the network was this. And I'll show you a picture later on of what it became after we started cleaning up. So this was my first overseas travel as a network engineer, understanding a little bit more and able to communicate and talk to people more about on the same language. People in different disciplines in IT have different jargons, different acronyms for the things that they do. And IT is just chock full of acronyms, and I'm sure other jobs are too. Let's see. And then so after me and Nani became a network engineer, our previous network guy had completely left. So we had no direct mentor or peer or guide anymore. There was no one above us in terms of network. And so it was just on us. And when we came back, one of our first tasks was to deploy a switch to one of the departments. Me and Randy stayed at the computer center until like 2 a.m. trying to figure this out. There was no manual, there's no procedures. It was from scratch. We pretty much Googled everything and how to set up a Cisco managed switch. Now, this is not just a switch like you have at home where you just plug it in and it works. We have to configure interfaces and trunking. And pretty much, yeah, it's at 2 a.m. You can see how haggard we were. And eventually finally deployed these two switches down here to, I guess this is Weary. And this is one of our first deployed switches on campus that were on our own. So we pretty much set our own ways from scratch. And so here in the left, you see what the data center used to be like, full of servers, standalone towers, racks, and what it became towards the end of 2018. We cleaned it up, pretty much took all these towers and put them into virtualized machines, and all the wires were cleaned up and run properly. And this is what we ended up with in 2018. Now, after we cleaned it up in 2018, we started filling it up again with more services and more service. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of that. I forgot to take a photo. But you can imagine now this room is just full of these black towers with equipment inside and cables all running inside rather than that mess I showed you where it's all dripping down. Again, as I mentioned, from 2016, that pretty much propelled our job day in, day out. Our job was to clean up the network, optimize it, and prepare it for Internet 2. And to do that, we had to do a lot of travel, talking to people, meeting people, learning new skills, and making agreements with other regions. It's like, hey, can we peer our networks together and direct our traffic to you? Well, because that's what Internet 2 is. It's not on the global internet, and so we have to make agreements with other places. We're like, hey, can we have our connections directly connected so that our traffic just goes straight from us to you rather than going from us to an internet provider, then to you. So, and we'll have like the full link at like 10 gig speeds. Can you imagine that, like 10 gig download speeds? It's bizarre. A terabyte would probably take, I don't know, an hour or less. So yeah, from 2017 to 2020, we traveled to Florida, Maine, Hawaii. We've been there several times. Melbourne. 2020, we were just there in Melbourne. Papua New Guinea. Nepal was one of our most fun visits. Nepal and Vietnam. We were also in Korea in 2019. Japan and Philippines a couple of times. So a lot of travel involved with networking. So networking in a sense is like networking IT wise and also actual social networking, meeting people. After gaining all this experience and all this knowledge and meeting with all these corporate and research education institutions, I started meeting other people too who in the smaller side. And that's when asking for help on how to get their networks up and running and how to get their businesses up and running. And that's how I became the owner of DNet Tech in 2017. I started my own business where my main target market were smaller mom and pop stops who couldn't afford the big company IT support. Let's say $90 an hour or so. I would charge lower just to help them out and get them up and running. So it's like a kind of Kickstarter, grassroots IT support. So that's what I did. I still do today. I've got like several clients who I assist on a regular basis. And the great thing about IT is if you know how to set it up correctly, it's easy to manage if and you can do things almost all remotely through remote software. You ever guys hear about like, calling like Microsoft tech support pretty much? If you just set up yourself in such a way where you can do everything remotely from the power of like your phone or a laptop on the go, uh, the opportunities are endless on what you can do with IT. Of course, not you can't do anything if the computer's physically broken remotely, but those things rarely happen, and that's not so much. But anyways, so what does a network engineer do? Like I said, it's about 75% logistics and meetings, answering emails, meeting people, making agreements, training. We do a lot of training, either receiving it, like you saw in the map. We travel to tons of places to get training, but we also give training. We numerous times we've been to high schools or other countries even to teach about different skills. We'll get like our packets or teaching material from our partners at NSRC, and we'll help teach alongside them, teaching different things about networking, system management, stuff like that. Uh, we also do a lot of documentation. Uh, use tools like Visio, making charts and diagrams, topologies, uh, to better understand and visualize. And because that was the problem that we had when we adopted the network, was the topologies weren't all there. It was kind of all in, I guess, in theory, in verbal, I guess, in verbal diction. And so one of the most important things about IT is documentation and creating what's called a SOP, standard operating procedure, for the point of change management, and then planning. Just again, planning, thinking about, okay, that department needs a better Wi-Fi system. We need a plan for that. Go through the procurement process, buy everything, and make sure everything's up to code. A lot of that, and 20% is actually on the command line, configuring equipment, configuring a server. It's relatively quick. Once you get the equipment, you configure and you put it out. We have we try to have the rule that when an equipment comes in, it can't sit in our office for more than a week. So then it at least gets out and gets deployed immediately. And the other percent, we do layer one shenanigans. So if you guys have studied the network OSI layers, 7 layers, layer one is pretty much the physical aspect of the equipment, troubleshooting like why a computer can't connect to the network. Maybe it's the line or running lines from building to building or room to room. That's what we call layer one. Layer two is the switch side, and layer three is the router side where you have IP addresses and stuff. Layer two is like MAC addresses. So that's what pretty much I do as a network engineer mainly. Here's some pictures of what I just mentioned. So here on the left, we have a picture here in Nepal where we're giving a lecture on log management. This was a 2-week long course. I think it was 1 week of the workshop, another week of conferencing, pretty much where we just talk to people and share things. On the command, and then the 20% I mentioned on the command line, this is a screenshot I took last night of a switch that we have. This is a Cisco switch. And then layer one shenanigans, here's us installing a wireless air fiber. This device up here can shoot up to 1 gig over a 13-mile distance, I believe. We have several of them set up at the Dean Circle to give them campus Wi-Fi so that they don't depend on commercial internet. Yeah, so we have, luckily UG now has these bucket trucks. Not too long ago, we had to like strap ourselves in harnesses and climb these towers just to install these wireless access points. But we don't do that too often. It's like once a year, twice a year maybe, where we have to install equipment like this. So what am I doing now? full-time network engineer, junior network engineer for University of Guam, doing all the things I just mentioned. We also support GOREX, which is the Guam Open Research Exchange. This is pretty much what internet interfaces internet to University of Guam. We participate as the local hands support for it. What that means is anything that's physically related to GOREX, we're the ones to take care of it. But GOREX is networkly managed by University of Hawaii. So we work with them closely. If there's anything that needs to be resetted or reconfigured or wires rerun or anything at all that they can't do remotely, we're the team that they call. And we're also the local representation for this project, the GOREX project. We also manage Marix, another in exchange that is run and managed by the University of Guam. Marix is what we're trying to establish here in Guam or the Marianas Islands as a internet exchange, pretty much to help make the internet on Guam smoother. So when you needed to, so when someone from, let's say, one service provider needs content sent to another service provider, they don't have to go through each other and make extra hops. And so in networking, routers are called hops. So instead, they'll meet at one point, and our traffic is at 10 gigs speed. They can connect at 10 gig speed, and we've heard that it actually lower their latencies for a lot of the things. And there's a lot more projects that we're trying to develop at Marix and services we're trying to provide. Like Cloudflare is one of our partners that we're trying to develop at Marix. And some other stuff that we're trying to build just so that people in the Mariana Islands don't have to have their traffic located, let's say in the States. Let's say if you're trying to download a game or trying to download some content, rather than your internet trying to reach all the way to, I don't know, California for that data, it'll just stay in Guam and get that information that much quicker. Also on the side, we're supporting Triton Esports. So I provide a lot of the network support for Triton Esports for what they need to make sure that their games run as smoothly as possible on campus, at least. Just send some networking advice every time they need it. And when I'm not doing Triton Esports networking stuff, I'm also volunteering running their games, which we have an event in November if you guys want to check their website out. What skills am I trying to learn and improve? Cisco and Juniper. So a lot of the university's equipment is Cisco, but we recently got some Juniper equipment for our border routers. So I'm trying to, get better at those. Wireless technology, we're trying to improve it. I don't know how's the wireless for everybody at the university, but we've been trying to improve it. Every now and then we do encounter equipment hiccups, and so we're trying to just get better equipment to support that. I'm trying to improve my skills with VoIP, voice over IP. Instead of using the traditional landline phones, we're trying to move everything over to VoIP because it is a cheaper and more versatile feature phone system. So Cisco is one of what I try to learn for the university, and 3CX is what I try to learn on the side for smaller size companies. You can actually run a 3CX VoIP system on a Raspberry Pi. Pretty insane. Linux systems. I try to just learn different systems you can deploy with Linux. It's like servers you can run at home, like a Plex or media servers, or you're running your own home DNS. That's what I do with with my Raspberry Pi. I have my own DNS at home that is ad filtering. So yeah. Inspirations as of late. I get my ideas from Linus Tech Tips. Whatever he does is on his network. I'll try and scale it to either what I can use at the university or at home. Network Chuck, he's a good source for IT education. And lately I've been into this guy, Joe Matek. He's not exactly a network engineer, he's a software engineer. But one of his videos he released about 3 days ago made a lot of sense to me. Was think of going through life as rolling a dice. And every dot on the dice is a step forward. You could, every time you roll the dice, you'll at the very least take one step forward, and if you're lucky, you'll take a big leap and take 6 steps forward. But if you never roll the dice, you'll never step forward. So just keep rolling the dice. And I thought that was a really good analogy and play into how, computer science is with the dice and chance and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the end of my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I also have my link tree here that links to a whole bunch of my social media and other things that I do. That's pretty much it. Oh, I'm also wearing my EMC skirt polo. Cool.
Okay, thank you, Jose. So for now, we will be opening the floor for questions. If anyone has questions, please feel free to type it out in the chat. Thank you.
Well, I have a question. So I know you mentioned a lot of like traveling experiences. So I wanted to ask, like, how often do you get sent out to like attend workshops or training, or if like after you complete those trainings, do you get any like licenses or certification after completing it?
It's up to you. So the way they did it, okay, so I'll answer your first question. How often was at least once a year? We try to do this thing called personal development. So for the university to invest in its staff, if the university wants to grow, then it needs its staff to grow, and so they reinvest its training into us. Or that's why we're trying to make them realize that, hey, get us training so that we can gain some knowledge and reinvest it back into the university. So we go out at least once a year, if we're lucky, twice a year. But and usually those are like fellowships that we can get for free. So there's a bunch of these workshops that you can apply for free, where you'll get board, lodging, everything free, even airfare, if you just apply at the right places. Certifications, not so much. We just get like course completion cards, I guess. And if you already have a certificate, you can use those as CEUs, or course education units, or something like that, to help renew your certificates. But the whole point was for the university to have us learn skills, and if we wanted to pursue a certificate after that, that would be on our own. More on certifications, I have none.
Thank you. Thank you.
How does one get their foot into the door of networking? Learn by doing. Just whenever an opportunity comes up, just face it head on and try it out. Like I showed you guys in that one slide, me and Randy took until 2 a.m. Googling how to configure a switch, and then taking our understanding what is arbitrary information and relating it to what we have in everyday life. Just, I guess, you start, as I mentioned, the 7 layers, you start at the bottom layer of layer 1, understanding how things connect physically is immensely important to understanding how they connect logically. I hope that answers your question. What type of certification do you plan on getting? I plan on getting the type of certification that I guess will make me more appealing to customers. So I don't plan on getting a certification for the university's sake, per se. But like I said, I do run my own side business, so I want to be able to say, hey, I'm VoIP certified or Cisco certified, so come or hire me to do your networking job at your business. I guess if that was to be more specific, it'd be like a CCNA, or I'm actually working on my 3CX VoIP. I got the basic one recently, and you can do that online for free, and you can get certified. And then you can eventually, if you get to the highest certification, you can become a partner with them. Do you have any suggestions for beginner IT certifications? Oh yeah, definitely. CompTIA has a bunch of easy certifications. Network Plus, A Plus, Security Plus. Those are all like really good basic certifications. I never took any of those because I got lucky having worked as a work study, and then just working, being exposed and just talking to people about different things, taking on projects. I guess this goes back to Nate's question on how does one get their foot into the door. And it doesn't have to be networking. It just be anything. Just because it wasn't in your job description doesn't mean it isn't an opportunity for you to learn and try doing it. Master's degree or higher in the future. Master's degree if I feel like I was gonna try and do something in the managerial space, but I don't think that's entirely necessary. And honestly, a computer science degree or IT degree in general is not entirely needed to be working in the IT field. My mentor, Philip Smith, who pretty much trains me on everything network related, he has a physics degree. Well, actually, he has a physics doctorate. One of my other mentors is a biology major. Um, People in IT come from all walks of life and education and backgrounds, and that's the greatest thing. It's like they bring things from a different side point of view to influence how the network runs. Because if you think about it, networking is propelled by people's wants. If people don't want higher downloads, there's no reason for companies to offer higher downloads. It's like, okay.
Hey
Yeah.
Jose, Randy
Hey,
here.
Randy. What's up, man?
Sorry to crash your presentation, but I just want to ask you a general question. Something you'd like. I think I can wrap it up in two questions. Number one, what keeps you going as a network engineer? And number two, what do you like most about doing network engineering?
Sorry, what was your first question again?
What keeps you going as a network engineer? And number two, what's your favorite part about being a network engineer?
Well, my answer to both questions is the same. And we've talked about this in length back when we were working together, was pretty much building something new. That's the greatest and funnest thing I think about networking, is that the fact that you could build new connections, build new relationships, and just come up with something new. Every now and then we'll be like, hey, look at this. There's this new way we can actually look at the network, a different point of view, different graphs, or different connections, different speeds. Building different topologies. Instead of building it in, say, a ring topology, you'll build it in a mesh topology, or daisy chain, because you had no choice but to get a super remote destination 3 hops of routers down the line, or whatever that. So the ability to build something new, it's like, I don't know, raising a child, or birthing a child and watching it grow and change over the years. You build something and grow, and then you can just admire it from afar, be like, hey, I built that. And that's one of the greatest things about networking that I like. Let's see.
Thank you for that answer, man.
Thanks,
And
Randy.
thank you for bringing us to memory lane, especially me, man. Like, I didn't realize you had all those pictures, and I was looking at it. I'm like, wow, man, that's like, I remember that 2 a.m. I remember that training. I remember that. So, doing great stuff, Jose. Keep it up, man.
Yeah, at 2 a.m., man, that'll never leave me.
Yeah,
I think that when you learn things the hard way, they stick better. If you're spoon-fed
yes.
information, it's like you'll forget it the next day if you don't use it. Have you ever thought about trying other IT fields like cybersecurity? No. I've seen what people in security have to deal with, and that's tough. That's a lot of mind games where you have to play. That's a different level of logistics, I guess. So the best thing I can say is that those networking and security cannot live with each other without each other. Network's goal is to improve performance and optimize the network, while security tries to, well, secure the network. But a lot of times security comes with hassle. Speaking of which, everyone should try to turn on 2 MFA on everything they have. But it becomes a hassle and hindrance. And so you have to find a balance. Like, do you want a secure network, or do you want a higher performance? And so we have to find that balance. We're like, okay, we'll compromise in the middle, and this is what we'll have. Just curious, if not network engineering, what else would you be career-wise? Gee, I don't know. Because I didn't come out of college or high school thinking like I'm going to study and strive to be a network engineer. I honestly had no idea, and this path kind of just laid itself in front of me, and I walked it as it appeared. Every opportunity that came up, I walked it. I didn't know where it was going, but it was appearing one step at a time. I just like, okay, I'm gonna follow this where it takes me. I don't think there has been a point where there was a fork where I had to make a decision like, oh, do I want networking or I want this? I mean, for a brief moment there was that programming position, but that immediately just got I got a sign that says nope, no thanks. So yeah.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, we would like to thank Jose for attending this alumni series. Thank you so much, Jose. Before everyone
Thank you,
leaves,
JC. Thank you, Squared.
can we ask for everyone, or if you guys want to turn on your cameras, and we will be taking a group screenshot